wherever you may be joining us from. Welcome to another edition of the Digital Download, which
Which
is
is
the longest running
Weekly
weekly
business
business
talk
talk
show.
show
on
on
LinkedIn Live.
LinkedIn Live, now globally syndicated on the IBGN radio network. Today, we're exploring why relationships and networks are critical in business. We have a special guest, David Nour, to help us with the discussion. Author of best-selling Relationship Economics, David's expertise lies in transforming transactional interactions into strategic assets. But before we bring David on, let's go around and introduce everyone. While we're doing that, why don't you and the audience reach out to a friend, ping them, and have them join us? We strive to make the digital download an interactive experience, and audience participation is highly encouraged. So with that, introductions. Tim, would you kick us off today, please?
Yes, my name's Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm famous for writing the book Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers. I'm also holding a copy of David's book, and I have a signed copy.
Ooh.
Wow.
Ooh.
Signed by whom?
My mother.
Well, there you go. Excellent. Thank you for that, Tim. Adam.
Hi, everybody. I'm Adam Gray. I'm Tim's business partner and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I've been flicking my camera back and forth, trying to decide whether it's round the right way or not. I think it probably is now. So I'm really looking forward.
Well, we don't see the back of your head, so it must be.
That's true. That's true. I'm really looking forward to it this week. Networking and relationships and the importance of building that kind of kernel of people around you is so crucial, and it'd be lovely to hear an expert talk about that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. Tracy, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I am Tracy Borison, founder of TLB Coaching and Events, a proud partner of DLA Ignite, where we care about authentic marketing, not the crazy, stupid marketing that most people do. And I am sipping a big cup of tea, and it just makes me laugh every time Alex sips his dainty cup of tea.
Yeah.
You haven't got. Where's your little finger, Alex?
Oh, sorry.
Because I can't do that with my cup because it's too heavy.
The cup's too full.
You've got a Star Wars mug, haven't you?
I do. I have R2D2 joining us today, but it's too heavy to lift with a finger.
Excellent.
Yes.
Welcome. Thank you for that. Alex, you and your dainty cup.
Me and my dainty English teacup. This is a bone china teacup. My wife's gran, I think or Nana, this belonged to. So anyway, digressing. So my name is Alex Abbott. I'm famous for having a long grey beard and occasionally known as the bearded sales guy. And I too am looking forward to this conversation today. And I too am a proud DLA Ignite partner. There we go.
Welcome. Thank you. And myself, I am Rob Durant, founder of Flywheel Results. We help startups scale. And I too am a proud DLA Ignite partner. And unlike Tim, I'm not famous for writing anything.
Yet.
Yes.
As I said,
How long are
this
you going
week-
to be saying that for, Rob?
not for much longer. I will
Okay.
be famous or infamous for writing something, that's for sure. As I said, this week on the Digital Download, we'll speak with David Nour. With over 2 decades of strategic consulting, David has advised Fortune 500 companies, innovative startups, and industry leaders, showcasing his expertise in leveraging business relationships for growth and innovation. Let's bring him on. David.
Hey, David.
Welcome.
It is good to be with this rowdy bunch.
Rowdy it
David.
is, that's for sure.
David, are you going to tell us your backstory? Because you've got early interest. Because you turned up at in the US, didn't you, with $100 in your pocket?
I did. Very
not
kind of
being
you.
able to speak a word of the language.
Yeah, very kind. Very kind of you to ask. Yeah. So originally from Iran, I came to the U.S. in 1981 with a suitcase, $100, didn't know anybody, and didn't speak a word of English. I literally land at JFK with a badge around my neck. I was a teenager. Put this kid on a Eastern airline flight to Atlanta, where I came and lived with an aunt and uncle that I hadn't seen since birth. And yeah, I really struggled the first couple of years. Just
Wow.
gaining a command of the English language was an uphill battle.
Remind me, where's JFK Airport? Is that
New York.
New York, yeah, New York City, yeah. So
Okay.
parents were retired now, teachers in Persian literature, Persian history, and the old regime had an exchange program. So we went to Kuwait and lived and worked throughout the Middle East. The new revolution happens. They call all those people back. My parents had the foresight to realize there wouldn't be a whole lot of future for me in Iran. So I've got a couple uncles in Europe, including one in UK that said, no thanks, too much of a responsibility. I had 3 uncles here in the US. 2 of them said, no thanks. One said, we'll take him for the summer.
Okay.
So I came for the summer. Thankfully, my aunt is American, and she convinced my uncle, if you send him back, it'll be a death sentence, because Iran was in the middle of the Iran-Iraq war at that time. And I did have a lot of childhood friends perish in that war. So in order for me to stay here, my parents gave me up for adoption. Aunt and uncle adopted me, and that's how I was able to stay here in the U.S.
Wow.
So one of the things
Fantastic.
one of the things that happened that you remember was walking with your dad in the bazaars in Iran, not buying anything but talking to people.
Yeah, I in our conversation, I mentioned that I certainly didn't get it then. I think I was 5 or 6 years old. And in Iran, they have 6-day weeks. Fridays are your kind of weekends or days off, and you typically do a couple of things. You go to bazaars, and then you also go to cemetery to pay your respects to folks that have passed on. But Dad would take me through on our Friday morning errands, and he didn't have just a list from my mom of what we had to go get or go do. Dad also had a relationship list, and of course at 5 or 6 you don't understand that and you complain. But he always bought me ice cream to kind of keep me happy and content. But whether it was access to a plumber or an influential politician, he made sure we made our rounds. And I distinctly remember a lot of Persian rugs and a lot of tea and sitting with older people and just kind of getting caught up. And what I took away, and that's really one of the inflection points of my life that has really kind of helped me kind of arrive here, is that Dad understood the notion of investing in relationships before you needed them, because there was people who were much more likely to return his calls or prioritize us or help him get things done in the favor economy, because he had invested in seeing them and touching base and regular updates, and he was very intentional about doing that.
Nice. That paying forward concept.
It's absolutely the investment concept that if you believe relationships are an investment, it's a lot easier to ask for something if you begin by making an investment. And the analogy, Alex, that I use is, I don't know about your bank. My bank will not let me, take out $1,000 withdrawal if I only have invested $100 in. Yet people come to us all the time asking for a favor where they haven't earned the right to do so. And I often talk about relationship givers. God bless Mother Teresa, right? There's people we meet all the time who get something very euphoric, very altruistic for just giving. The problem is most of us can't be pure givers, because I don't know about you guys, I have something called a mortgage. Then there's relationship takers who the only time they call is when they want something, and they never see themselves as takers. And we all want to be nice, so we kind of enable that behavior. And nobody ever calls them out on it. Like, I'm sorry, when was the last time you called to see how I'm doing and how my life or my business is going? And we kind of keep doing it for them, so they keep coming back and taking more, and they know no boundaries.
Yeah.
And then there's really the delightful people who are relationship investors, who really understand that it's a lot easier for have my hand out if I start by giving a hand. If I help someone else, if I add value, if I'm intentional about the relationships I invest in, the return becomes extraordinary.
Yeah, love that.
Speaking of relationships, we have a few relationships we've established with the audience. So I want to bring some comments on screen right now. You like that transition? I did my best.
Yeah, that's very slick.
You need to run a
Very
podcast, Rob.
So Mark Cowison starts with, "Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to the jungle, David."
Mark, don't I know it? I've only been here a few minutes.
Andrew says, "Good morning, good afternoon, all." This
We
is
always
Dave.
wait to him, David.
Yeah. Hey, Andrew, and hello, Mark. I was literally just on another podcast, and Mark was incredibly giving of his time.
Excellent. We have Serenity Disco saying, "Very excited to learn all I can from this session." And she does, in fact, tag a friend to bring them to the audience. Thank you so much for that. Rob Turrell says, "Book just arrived. Good to hear from David again."
I must have sold one of your books on my podcast.
I love it. There's 2 copies. There's 2 copies right
Two
there.
copies. Excellent.
Or the same copy going back and forth.
Yeah.
And we have, Adam, help me out.
Yayan.
Yayan Compton. I call them energy vampires.
Yeah, I think he's
In
referring to
relation to
the
what you're talking
relationship takers. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. So thank you all for that. David, I wanted to start with a foundational question. What do you mean by relationship economics?
Rob, thank you for asking. Yeah, I for decades, I've believed in philosophically 3 notions that we kind of alluded to relationships as an investment. And I think you guys would agree most people don't make investments blindly, right? We don't throw darts and say that's where I'm going to invest. So I believe relationships should be proactive / intentional, strategic, and ultimately quantifiable. So if you think about that idea, we all know relationships are important. Most people do. I would submit most people struggle in really realizing their significance. So as I was thinking about these concepts, I began to talk about and think about this idea of relationship currency, where we exchange value. Over time, we develop our reputation capital. And ultimately, we're all building our professional net worth of relationship assets and liabilities. And with every one of these concepts and with this construct, what I'm trying to do is combine this nebulous concept, this idea of relationships that we know is important, with economics that we understand. It's black or white. It's investments. It's about supply and demand. It's about scarcity. It's about utilization. And in relationship economics, I've brought these 2 concepts together, and that's what we call it, the art and the science of relationships, of being more intentional, more strategic, and more quantifiable in the relationships we choose to invest in.
I love the thought of that. As you were explaining that, one of the things that came to mind, I teach an introduction to marketing class at Northeastern University.
Sure.
One of the things that I was sharing with the students early on are some of the basic economic concepts. I'm going to provide value to you in terms of the product or service that I give. You're going to provide value to me, typically in terms of compensation. I value the compensation you have more than I value the product or service, so I'm willing to exchange. And likewise, you value the product or service more than the compensation. How does that work in terms of a relationship? I value what more than I value my attention to you more than I value my time? Or...
A great question. I would submit that our biggest enemy is time. I can always make more money, but I can't produce more time. So the Dunbar number says that an average individual can proactively manage about 100 to 150 relationships. Here's $1 million question for you. Which ones? And how do you know? And if you believe the notion that relationships are an investment, you can't invest in everybody equally. So how will you then prioritize who do you invest in? So one of the things I coach people to do, let's take it from a theoretical construct into something practical, something pragmatic. Who are your top 100 relationships? That's a very straightforward question, yet so many people struggle with that basic notion because we all tend to be very myopic, right? So if I'm in sales, I'm always thinking about my pipeline. Well, how about your customer alumni? People who already have demonstrated that they like you, they trust you, they believe you, they respect you, they've bought from you before, but for whatever reason, either in your history or theirs, your situation has changed. So there were a previous customer in a previous job, but we all get busy and we forget about them and we kind of neglect them. And they go by the wayside because they're no longer relevant to kind of what we do or what they do, or different company, different geography, whatever the case may be. So we may think of our customers, we may think of prospects, we may think of a few people inside a company, but very few people are intentional about sit down and capture who are the top relationships in my life, business relationships, that I want to be intentional about investing in, about nurturing, about sustaining. And Rob, here's why that's really important. There's a misperception that we all need more. I want more prospects. I want more customers. I need more. No, you really don't. You actually, if you think about the global pandemic, we didn't spend more time with more people. We spent more time with fewer people. But it was people we knew, people we liked, people we trusted. They, in essence, were authentic and real relationships. So I would submit, if you're looking for a greater impact in your efforts, focus on fewer, but build deeper, richer, more meaningful relationships.
Wow.
Here.
I think this is so true. And I just want to share, because I had this experience coming out of COVID with a group of friends that I have. So not business relationships, but friends. And what became very clear to me with most of those people was that there wasn't a huge amount of value for me to hang out with them. They're in different industries. They are not really bringing, I would put them into the energy vampires category. And they exist because like we were a group. We moved through part of life together and it made sense at that time. They were not energy vampires at that time.
Do they watch this show, Tracy?
I don't believe they watch the show. No, it's what I'm telling you. They're not on LinkedIn. Most of my peeps are on LinkedIn. But like I had this conversation with myself as to like, what is the value to me to put effort into maintaining these relationships, which was really interesting because there were actually like some people I had met on LinkedIn who I had a much more meaningful relationship. And there's also that quantifiable piece of it. And I do believe that quantifiable can be qualitative, not just quantitative. And so there's like, oh, okay, well, I would rather go for lunch with like this group of people who are doing like creative brainstorming than this group of people who are going to talk about other people the entire time.
Tracy, in a non-creepy way, I'm a hugger, and if you were here, I would hug you because
I'm a hugger too, so we get that works.
Because what you're referring to are several really critical points. One, we create relationships in these unique buckets, and those buckets serve very different needs that we all have. So think of this, we call your relationship ecosystem, but I have a group of friends who really fill my need for my faith, or they're that part of my world. I have another group of friends, I ride motorcycles, and these are riding buddies, and my life is richer because on a nice weekend day, we ride in the North Georgia mountains, or I've ridden across the country. Some of them I've ridden globally with, and they filled that part of my life. So we need these unique buckets in our lives because they fill us. We tend to deprioritize some versus others when we perceive that value exchange is no longer there for our time, for our effort, for our resources. So if I go have lunch with you and that lunch was, it was okay, but either you were too self-centered or I didn't feel like I'm better off because of that relationship. I'm going to deprioritize you because, again, I keep advocating this. We only have so many hours in. I've been looking for the 25th hour a day. I haven't found it yet, right? And by the way, I want to also spend time with my wife and my kids and other parts of my life. So my capacity for those exchanges are limited. And we're always contemplating, do I want to return Rob's call or Tim's? Do I want to spend time with Adam, or would I rather go have lunch with Alex? Oh, none of them.
You want to spend time with Adam. That's the reality.
Tracy's way
Don't
more
we all?
fun. Just saying.
So context matters. Here's the other thing, Tracy, that you said that really resonated. Believe it or not, in any interaction, it's actually less about us and more about how that other person is better off because of us. So the value exchange can't be just talked about. It can't be a website. It can't be an email. It's not a brochure. It's how we make them feel.
David,
I've always said, just sorry, last question. I've always said I have a very simple formula for trust. Credibility says you know more about your area of expertise than anybody else. Plus empathy, you can be quiet long enough to ask great questions, really understand where they're coming from. When you do that multiplied by consistency, when you do that consistently over time, that's how you earn my trust. When you earn my trust, I bring you into my inner circle. When you earn my trust, I'm willing to share more with you. When you earn my trust, we become closer. We start to exchange not just superficial value, but deeper value. That's how people prioritize who they call back, who they email, who they choose to work with, who they buy from, who they refer or recommend. That's how relationships become richer, deeper, more meaningful.
So I don't think anyone on this call right now would disagree with you. In fact, I think the five of us violently agree with you. But why do so many companies force their people to behave in a way that creates the opposite when actually they want to create exactly what you just described?
The transactional relationships.
Yeah, three culprits. One, I've long believed, and I've always believed, metrics and compensation drive behavior.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Think about how people are measured. Think about how they're compensated. A lot of organizations advocate A, but they measure and compensate B. Is there any surprise that there's a disconnect? Number two, we're not talking about teaching people how to use Microsoft Excel, right? So relationships typically are I'm saddened by the fact that this topic is not taught in our schools. It is not taught in anybody's new hire training. It is not taught in many management or leadership development programs. So how are we supposed to pick this up? Well, I'm pretty sure we're supposed to pick it up through osmosis. But the way we pick it up is through modeling. We see a great leader who demonstrates phenomenal relationship building skills, knowledge, and behaviors, and we say, ooh, I want to be like that person. Similarly, we see or we have a jerk for a boss who is toxic and combative and confrontational. And we're like, I'm never going to be like that person. So we pick it up through modeling. And when leaders don't model the right behaviors, it doesn't cascade well for the rest of their teams. Number two. Number three, we talk about it, right? We don't emphasize it. We don't reinforce it. We don't integrate it in what we do. So in many ways, relationships in many organizations are an afterthought. And I talk about the feathers at the tail end of the arrow, not the arrowhead. We don't lead with the relationship and let the results come from that. We lead with, here's my KPIs, here's my OKRs, here's my on and on and on and on. And oh, by the way, people are our biggest asset. And yet, as soon as the economy turns, what do? We lay everybody off. We love our partners. And as soon as the deal comes, oh, screw the partner. I'm going to go get that deal directly. We talk a lot about in startups. I think Rob mentioned he helps startups scale. Startups and venture capital or any kind of a financial infusion. We want a financial partner. No. Listen, you've been at this too long. We need to exit. We got to get our money back. We're going to lose our shirts. We got to, impatient capital is not relationship-centric capital.
Mm.
So there's a disconnect between what we profess and actually how we show up.
Yeah.
I've
Timothy
been
from
thinking
our
this
audience.
for so long that we
I'm
have this
sorry.
problem with startups. Anyway, I just like to hear David say it.
I wanted to bring an audience question into the discussion. Marcus Kane asks, can forever looking to developing deeper relationships with a few clients end up being seen as a bit too needy? There must be a nice, honest balance here. David, what do you think?
Marcus, great question. It's full disclosure. It's been a few presidents since I've dated, but can you imagine trying to date someone who doesn't want to date you?
Very difficult.
It's an uphill battle, right? Because that's when we show up as needy. Have you seen how good and nice I am and how sweet I am? And they don't care. So here's again a practical idea. Many organizations talk about their ideal customer profile, ICP. And they also go further and talk about their personas, right? So we want to work with CFOs of mid-market companies in manufacturing. Great. You know what nobody talks about? Ideal relationship profiles. Nobody talks about that person gets me. And by the way, last time I checked, relationships are never between buildings or logos. They're always between individuals. Your logo, your building has no relationship with that company. It's John and Steve, Beth and Susan. So why can't we focus on people who and I would submit to you that if we start to focus more on who gets me, who gets our value add, who needs our value add, who prioritizes working with us. I don't want to swim upstream. I'd rather swim downstream. So this idea of focus on fewer, I call it the Jerry Maguire business model after the movie. What if we focused on fewer, but people who got us, saw value in working with us? We like them. We like working with them. We'll bend over backwards to help and support them. I have a friend in wealth management who says, I don't care what the issue is. I want to be the one phone call my clients make. And he's shared some of these examples of literally a client, high net worth individual client, calling them because their less than bright children have wrapped a expensive vehicle on a island somewhere around a tree. And he is not in that business, but he'll make a few phone calls and get that kid out of a jam in another part of the world. And he doesn't financially benefit from that. You know what he's building? Relationship currency. You know what he's strengthening? Reputation capital. That guy is the one phone call I want to make regardless of what it is. So the next time that client has 5 million, 10 million, 100 million to invest, guess who they're gonna call?
Mm.
If we lead with the relationship, the outcomes we're after will come, but it has to be the right ideal relationship profile.
That's just brilliant. Absolutely. I mean,
I'm going to sit here and listen to David.
Yeah.
Well, look, read out some of the comments, Rob.
We have Nigel Packer coming in on Twitter. I still can't call it X. Sorry.
It will always be Twitter.
And he shares, like an onion, there are rings of authority. Your inner ring network should have about 15 people in it. These are invited to meet up for a lunch every month where you can discuss opportunities and build the relationship. If someone is not fully invested in the network, you drop them and invite someone else from the next ring to join the inner circle. It takes a little time, but eventually you will have a close network that benefits everyone in it. So along those lines, David, what would you suggest we do in terms of taking action towards building a better network?
So number one, become more intentional. And let me just clarify that a second. relationships, and Tracy brought it up, are contextually relevant. So my next door neighbor, great guy, young family. He runs a small landscaping business. They're relevant in the fact that he's got keys to my house and security code to my house for when we travel, but it's not really relevant to the work that I do. So start with the end in mind. And in the book that Tim has, that was autographed by his mom, I talk about start with the end in mind. We call those kind of relationship-centric goals. By the way, you want to become a better person? God bless you. You want to read more? That's fantastic. You don't need anybody else to do that. So I talk about relationship-centric goals where you need relationships to help you achieve the outcomes. Start with those. Covey says the same thing. Start with the end in mind. Next, pivotal contacts. Who do you need? Jim Collins, I had a chance to work with him. He often talks about we don't ask enough who questions. When we face a challenge or an opportunity, we often ask what should we do and how should we do it. We don't ask enough who questions. Who do I need? There are no new challenges. There are no new obstacles. The only new challenges are the ones we haven't thought of. Somebody else somewhere else has. So if I know the outcome I'm after, a pivotal contact is who do I need? Next, your existing relationship bank. Who do you know? You know more people than you think you do. The problem is we're all really bad at keeping up with them. You want proof? If any of your audience members looks at their contacts on their phones, right? Bring up your contacts, look at them alphabetically. I just have one question of you. Do you know any of these people? So garbage in, garbage stays. We're all very good at collecting LinkedIn contacts. Go through your LinkedIn. Are they contacts or are they relationships? The whole process is predicated by what are called relationship currency deposits. What can I do for an existing relationship that creates access to or an opportunity with a pivotal contact that will accelerate my ability to get to that outcome? When you do that intentionally, when you do that strategically, when you do that quantifiably, we call it intelligent relationship mapping. I'm not trying to overcomplicate it. What I'm giving you is a process, a playbook of exactly that. How do we become more intentional in the relationships we choose to invest in?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Any questions?
I'm sorry, I'm
So-
busy taking
Yeah,
notes.
I'm writing down everything that David said.
So in terms of some of the comments to allow you to think, so Ian Compton's basically, he's already ordered a copy of your book, David. So we've
There's 3 copies. Wiley's loving me. There's 3 copies.
You're going to be able to retire.
Yeah, at the end of this call.
Yeah. So Rob Turl says the big test. How many colleagues or business relationships have come to your home or vice versa?
Yeah, Rob, great question. I in the book, I talk about this idea of a relationship value pyramid. And I just want the audience to kind of think about this notion. And don't get caught up on the terminology. I just want you to conceptually understand the difference between contacts and really rich, meaningful relationships. At the bottom of the pyramid, I call them situation. They come, they go. You never know, where or how they might be relevant. So they're kind of collegial, but they're just kind of transactional in many ways. The next group, I call investments. You invest time and effort to get to know them. They've gotten to know you. Maybe they've met your significant other. Maybe you've gone to a pub and had a pint together. But they're basically that next level. The very next level I call portfolio. They're subject matter experts. They know more about a particular topic or area than anybody else. Your interaction with them is regular, and it's a very collaborative relationship. The very pinnacle of everybody, business professionals, I call them your 2 a.m.s, because you really could call them 2 in the morning. And the first question is, are you okay? There's a certain X factor with those relationships that's gone beyond the transactional. So back to Rob's question of how many people have come to my home. I have roughly about 3,500 people in my active portfolio of relationships. 18 are 2 a.m.s. On average, I've known them 20 plus years. They're past clients, they're past colleagues, they're past investors, they're past CEOs of mine. but our relationships have really elevated to a very different level where they're now investing in my tech startup, past clients and classmates. And so it's more than just a transaction. So I've had investments come to my home and I've been to theirs. I certainly have portfolios that have gotten to know me better. I've vacationed with them. The 2 a.m.s are people that will bail you out of jail. So one of my audience members asked, Nour, do you really need 18 people to bail you out of jail? I said, you never know when the first 17 might be busy or sitting in jail with you, right?
Bigger problem.
We're talking about the quality of the relationship, right? What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. But you get my point, is that not all relationships are created equal. With some, we genuinely build deeper, more meaningful. The challenge is I've read over 100 books on business relationships. I couldn't find a scale, so we build one.
I just want to share, I did a networking event a couple of weeks ago, and we did this exercise where it was around Valentine's Day, so it was mostly about connection. And we did this BEST, friend. What do the letters stand for? And one of the things that my group came up in my group was hide the body. Who are the people who would help you hide the body? And I feel like these fit into the 2 a.m. group.
Absolutely. We all need friends in our lives who will hide the body. Now that's a very incriminating coming from somebody from the Middle East. But
Yeah, I'm Canadian, so maybe it's less. We're assuming we're not hiding bodies, but I just thought that same principle.
Yeah, and again, Tracy's got a great softball question for me, which is, networking. I've always had a visceral reaction to networking. Not only it's one letter away from not working, but most networking is just very transactional, right? We go, and have you met people who dispense business cards? By the way, for our younger audience, business cards are these things that we would, right? They dispense business cards like it's a coupon. Like I don't do that. And most people, my wife calls it icky. Like, I don't want to go do that. Conversely, because it's highly transactional. Conversely, if you think about relationships, they're deeper, more meaningful, more valuable to us. So I've started to do more small group dinners with people I want to get to know better versus these transactional events where we go and, they have their place and you go for content or community, but I'd rather invest time to get to know fewer people really well. And these dinners are becoming 3 and 4 hours because the conversation is so rich versus, I went to an event and I got a card and I gave a card and I could care less about that person.
So
I want to pick up on that.
Oh, Rob's organising a speed networking event. Can he count on you to come?
Yeah. I mean, Adam, for you, I'd be delighted to help and support and be there.
And convince you how to not do that and do something else instead.
Right.
So I wanted to pick up on that dinner concept and that dinner that lasted 3 and 4 hours. What are the conversations about? Because I have to believe it's not buy my stuff.
Yeah, unequivocally. So, Rob, let me preface that the question with this comment. If you think about it a second, for anybody who's traveled extensively or worked abroad, the rest of the world builds relationships first, from which they do business. Regrettably, as Americans, or in many Western cultures, we're so focused on the business that if and only if the business works, we may ask about their significant other or their kids or their parents or what they do when they're not working. Hence the disconnect when we go into places and people don't look like us or sound like us. And in the words of the famed philosopher Britney Spears, this isn't rocket surgery. This is invest the time and effort to get to know others and explore. You don't know if there's anything there or not. I'm willing to, given certain kind of cursory lenses, I'm willing to invest time and effort to get to know them. So, Rob, you're exactly right. The dinner conversations, what breaks your heart right now? The dinner conversations, how are you learning? How are you growing? Particularly with those of us who didn't paint on the gray hair. Dinner conversations, How are you coaching, mentoring, guiding the next generation, not just to do this, because this they're really good at, this they're really bad at, especially since they haven't had to do it in the last 2-3 years of this pandemic. So conversations that are beyond the superficial really get to know the character, really get to know the values, really get to know the purpose of that individual. And what you're looking for is alignment in those things that matter a heck of a lot more than any one transaction. And I'm never going to get to know those if I'm always talking about speeds and feeds and price and hourly rates and any of that stuff. Now, I'm a realist. Our world has a need for a lot of those things. I feel incredibly blessed that I can pick and choose who I work with, who I coach, who, we roll out our technology with, who I choose to go have a cup of coffee with, right? And there's a slang here in the States, don't bro me, because until you know me, right? Don't pretend we're best friends until you actually invest time and effort to get to know who I am and what I'm about. And just one last comment, and I promise to get off the pulpit. I am saddened by how little due diligence this next generation does before they show up. They don't know anything about us. They don't know anything about our work. And I can't equate it to anything else other than laziness. How long does it take to Google my name before our call? How long does it take to just spend a few minutes on my LinkedIn profile or my website to at least learn an ounce about who I am and what I do before you show up to that Zoom or that next coffee meeting?
So let's pick up on that then. In the age of AI and automation, how can businesses ensure that their relationship building efforts are still human-centered and genuine? All of those research in advance and so on, shouldn't AI just take care of that for me?
I love this. So
I set him up. You knock him down.
Again, forget the hug offer to Tracy. I want to hug you because this is really a teeing up a softball. So I've built. As you guys know, there's collectively, AI and ML and a lot of these technologies have been around for a while. It's just in the last year with ChatGPT, it's just become incredibly pervasive and much more prevalent. So I've been researching, I've been interviewing a bunch of executives, and I've built a brand new kind of keynote. And the title of it is Consequences of AI on Enterprise Relationships. And I specifically say consequences because there's both positive and negative. But let me just drop a few on you that might resonate. So let's talk about positive consequences. One, amplified customer obsession. Jeff Bezos and the team at Amazon kind of coined that term of not just customer satisfaction, but customer obsession. What AI does is it gets into beyond reactive, starts to get into proactive, if not predictive, needs, wants, priorities of those customers. That is phenomenal as a positive consequence of what AI can do for relationships. Data-driven decision, not just making, decision impact. AI can help me build models to predict when we make this decision, how will that relationship be better off because of it? Before we even make it, before we roll it out. That is brilliant. Love that. And one more. Dramatically elevating definitions of efficiency and productivity. We know what efficiency and productivity is. Again, through modeling, through predictive models, AI can tell us if that partnership is going to yield the results or the outcomes we're after. So those are just 2-3 examples of positive. Now let me flip the coin. Negative. Number one, obliterations, right? Literally, we might as well throw job descriptions out the door, because I just saw a week or so ago a demo of an AI engine that can scan 10,000 sheets and analyze it of information, of data in 8 seconds. So if your value add is, I'm going to review a bunch of documents, right? You need to find something else to do, because that job description goes out the door, which means by definition, collaboration is going to have a ripple effect. right? How we work with others, how we define work, how we define success from work is going to evolve. Data privacy terrorism. Do you think that bad actors are sitting around waiting for us to kind of really get better before they launch the next attack? Here in the States, hospitals, health systems are getting attacked. Talk about the relationship now of every employee within the organization with their respective fields and AI impacts on that. Things like the fragility of our tech reliance in the States. We don't know if it was a solar flare. We don't know if it was a software update, but the cellular network went down yesterday. You would think we have lost our minds because we can't, right, get a hold of people, or we can't, right, get direction from our Google Maps or Waze or any of the stuff that we're dependent on. So it just shows you AI is going to have far-reaching consequences, positive and negative, on our relationships. What none of us can do is ignore it. What none of us can do is pretend this isn't going to happen to me. By the way, again, recent data, 2.7 billion in US invested in AI startups in the first 2 months of this year already. They're not investing in A and B because of interest rates, but a lot of VCs are very bullish on investing in seed round, particularly of AI, generative AI type organizations. But Rob, very long answer to your short question of it is going to have a ripple effect on what we do and how we interact with relationships.
So can I ask a follow-up question to that, David? Because you used the word intention a bunch of times. And so when it comes to our intention with AI, is that then dependent on our intention with our relationships?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to I think it was the movie Captain America, where Steve Rogers was infused with that serum that made him, bulky. And the German scientist character made a statement that if you are good, this serum will amplify those values and will make you even better, kinder, gentler. It will amplify those attributes. If you have ill intent, I believe AI, and AI is the same thing. I think AI will amplify our intent and really make us better at the things we do really well. If you have ill intent, AI will amplify a lot of those evil doings. So that's where I go back to your purpose and your values and ideal relationship profiles. Tracy, those are all who we are and what we're about and what we choose to focus on that I believe AI will amplify. We're building a platform. I don't want to do campaigns. I don't want to send out emails. There's a lot of other people that'll do that. I want to amplify your relationship building, nurturing, capitalizing kind of skills, knowledge, and behaviors.
It's good that you said that. My concern is that people, certainly my experience of working with people, is that they're always looking for the easy button. So the promise of AI feeding you a constant stream of people that are ready to buy your product or have a conversation with you, whatever, is an alley that people shouldn't be attempting to go down. Because at the end of the day, it's such a cliche, people buy people, but it's one of the truest it's a cliche for a reason.
Yeah,
because it's true. And one of my concerns is that people forget this relationship thing. They forget, I'm going to do business with you because I like you, because we share a passion for motorbikes and blues music or whatever it is.
Sure.
And that's the foundation on which we get to know each other, and we build trust and we like and etc. And AI strips all of that away.
Adam, unequivocally. So just look at practically our email. I don't know how many spam emails you guys get a day, but mine is out of control, right? And every one of them. My favorite. Here's one of my favorites. David, we've extensively researched your background. Have you ever thought about writing a book? So it goes back to, you don't know me. You don't know anything about me. And that wasn't done by an individual, because you'd have to be thick as a brick right? Not to Google my name or come to the website or whatever and realize that, yeah, this guy's already done that. So
Wait,
I-
you wrote a book?
I believe it or not, yes, sir. So AI, I believe, can do a lot of the heavy lifting in our due diligence, but pretty soon we're going to have an AI built-in agent that automatically deletes the emails and the spams that we don't want, we don't like, just like you've got an AI engine that will send out spam emails. So soon AI is going to talk to AI, right? And we're still back to the fundamentals, back to Adam, as you mentioned, the relationships. Think of who we take calls from. Think of who we return emails to. Think of who we prioritize meeting with. Those are all people we know, we like, and data shows this. I read a quick BCG, or I think it was a Bain paper that said most of the business is going to companies or individuals on a short list. How do you get on the short list? Number one, you're a known entity. They've worked with you before. Number two, you're a known entity from a previous job or previous company. Number three, you become highly recommended from somebody they trust. All three of those are relationship centric.
Yeah, and for us, obviously we work in the social media space. LinkedIn, as an example, only works for me as a business development tool because I'm there engaging with you and you're a target of mine. And the only reason that you're engaging with me is because you think you can sell me something as well as me selling you something.
Yep.
And when one of us is replaced by AI, I mean, clearly there's more to it than that, but in its most simplistic form,
Sure.
If one of us is replaced by AI or some bot, then there's no reason for me to be there anymore, because the thing that I'm interacting with isn't a real person that potentially can buy my products or services, which means ultimately social media becomes social somewhere that isn't digital potentially, because again, it's all about relationships, all about people.
Yep. And I'm going to go back to something I started this conversation with, which is our biggest enemy is time and bandwidth. Where will you choose to invest? Whom will you choose to invest that time and bandwidth with? Makes all the difference in your progression, in your journey from now to next. Whatever that journey is, be cautious about who you choose to invest in.
Wow.
Adam, in your example, I have this. So if you look up my title I have on my experience right now, I'm the only one who has it. I made up the title. And my favorite thing is when people message me like, we help digital brand advisors. And you're like, well, I actually go back to them and I'm like, that's interesting. Can you tell me about another time that you've helped someone with this title? Because as far as I know, I'm the only one on LinkedIn. And mostly they don't respond. But I did have somebody reply once being like, oh, you caught me. That was my AI doing that. Yeah, people know. People can tell. Crazy.
David, this has been fantastic. And you can tell it's been fantastic because there's been more than one period where this panel has been silenced. That means we're busy jotting down notes and we're processing it. It's not that the conversation waned, it's that we couldn't keep up.
Rob, very kind. I'm grateful to Tim. He was kind enough to meet me in London for a lovely breakfast, and we had a great conversation. And then I despite of his better wisdom and declining reputation for hanging out with this cohort, recommended this group for us to talk. So thanks to Tim and you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
And thanks for the Britney Spears quote, David.
Yeah, yes. David, how can people learn more about you? How can they get to know you?
Very kind. You can just Google my name, David, Nour, or if you go to Nour Group, nourgroup.com, we got a blog. There's all kinds of good stuff there as well that they can learn from and grow through.
Fantastic. And we now have a newsletter. Don't miss an episode. Get show highlights, beyond the show insights, and reminders of upcoming episodes. Scan the QR code on screen or visit us at digitaldownload.live and click on newsletter. On behalf of the panelists, our guest, to our audience, thank you all, and see you.